I was just looking at the tanks that were given to Ukraine and the amount they needed. And so, I was instantly drawn to the amount of tanks they needed and what is the determining factor of how many tanks they need on the battlefield. And I guess the obvious answer is that on par with the Russians have. Then it goes into question, well, they're so expensive, you got to protect them. Yeah, I mean, that is a redundant question, right? Because you want all the associated um, vehicles and weaponry to protect them, anti-aircraft, artillery, um, other armored cars, armored vehicles, um, to preserve that punch, whatever. I mean, but that is just theoretically what you would need. And so, yes, it's 500, but if they have 2,000, you would want that. And then you get into this other, almost fantastical, theoretical, thought of, well, what happens if they double that? You get 4,000 tanks. Would that be enough? And then you have this exponential increase of men and material to supply those tanks and everything. So, I mean, you got these theoretically would be ideal of how many tanks that you would need. You definitely don't want to give Zelensky just enough, because honestly, the fight's in Ukraine and they do not protect anybody sitting in storage, especially with equipment that will never see um, never be used anyway, like we should just offload all of our Hummers, for instance, that type of thing. And our old last gen equipment, right? So, that's what I was thinking. Like, what is the determining factor of how many tanks we give them? How many do they need? And I guess like one of those questions would have to be like, how many can we produce? And that's the obviously how many do they need is not it. Obviously, um, that would be ideal, but that's not reality. It's how many we produce, right? Just how it is. I mean, they need X amount. Can we give them that? We could probably, yeah, we definitely give them 500. But then, how many can we give after that to be on par? And then I guess the safe answer is that how is it doesn't affect our industry, So how many can we produce per month? Each of our countries, Um, and a lot of our countries are in a different status of war footing, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland are almost in gearing, they're mobilizing, they're very, and Finland, they're contemplating total war stance, Um, now, what is Portugal doing? And Spain, and you know, giving weapons, whatever. So their stance is very different, Um, but that goes into question like the production, And so the more we produce, the more we give them. So as we gradually increase our capacity, is how many tanks we're actually going to give them. So it's not how much they need; it's how much can we safely give them without interrupting our economy. And that's what we need to preserve is our economy because that's what they seek to destroy. Because our economy is what protects our democracy, and our democracy enables this creativity. Um, for our economy, and that could fund our military equipment, right? And the thing is, it's just like when someone's slowly annihilating your country, it doesn't have to completely destroy it. And there's going to be a tipping point where the luxury of democracy is not going to be there, and we're going to be at each other's throats. We're going to be um, basically animals, whatever, going after each other, searching for, just trying to get food and water and everything else like that. No one trying to be civility. You know, civility is when we have enough, when we choose to be civil to people. We choose not to be civil to other people. And democracy enables that. So when you're slowly being destroyed, we won't have the luxury. We won't have the luxury of democracy. So we have to preserve who we are. Part of that is our industry. Um, that's what I was getting at. So this whole thing is to disrupt who we are. So we got to preserve it no matter what. We got to definitely have a foundation of a theorem of this new, not just like as a prelude to war, but as war progresses, because it's very intricate. And that's what I'm concerned about. This can't be one person, making some kind of like monumental, you know, uh, construct or some kind of, you know, dissertation about, how we should go about this. I could just state that I know we need one, and I know that it needs to be dated by a lot of people. Um, but so we know we need to increase industry, but we know who we are could be gradually whittled down because it is our structures, it is our democratic structures that makes us who we are. And then once those get not just, I mean, not just turned in on itself, that's one way to destroy us. That enables us to be civil. It's our bureaucratic system enables our freedoms. We like to say it doesn't, but that's what gives us, the environment to create, to innovate. It's that's what it is. It's to protect us. We unfortunately have this notion that the government is there to attack us, whatever. Therefore, we should remove those protections off of people, whatever, and use it to not help people. But the actual government is there for the people, you know. Um, so we have to preserve those structures and our economy, and not divert attention away from other parts of our industry. Yes, we have to build tanks, but we also have to build other things, and iPhones and everything else like that. Because it will destroy who we are. So we have to preserve our industry. We don't want to become a fascist dictatorship where we're geared for one thing: war. Do we have to build up our economy, prepare for war? Parabellum. Hope for peace, prepare for war, right? But in that, we don't want to use that to um, be a demagogic type of phrase and convincing tactic to just gear ourselves for war and attack our structures, our people, and the like, whatever. So we still have to build all those other things, including tanks, and preserve that. And it's a very dynamic thing. And that being said, the more we preserve our economy and build our economy and streamline it a little bit, put old arguments, you know, trying to resolve those, be more focused in resolving that. There's a difference between focusing everything like a fascist dictatorship for war, than focusing more attention on our economy so we can produce more. There's definite delineation, and we want to make sure we keep everything intact as we do this, as we progress. Because if we take care of our economy, we could produce more tanks, we could produce more A-10s. So honestly, that's what I think they need is A-10s and F-16s. F-16s sounds all great. I guess if you're Maverick or whatever, I mean, I guess sounds great, and has the connotation of whatever, but they need close air support where they can instantly come in and support the infantry, and on this day and age, we could even, I mean, they're like a 50-year-old plane anyways, put carbon fiber armor around the cockpit, engines and everything. So you preserve the best weapon that's there, the human brain piloting it, you know what I mean? So that's just me. Better engine, protected, more armor. I mean, off the shelf armor too. It's like, so if they capture, you know, it's like armor from 10 years ago. Of course, it's right there, you know. So what do you fucking do, you know? Say they see a 50-year-old aircraft and shit, you know. Anyways, what was I getting at? Okay, so they could give them more weapons. So I'm gonna get sidetracked. I'm already rambling and going tangential already, you know. Um, so that's what we got to do because you see what's happening, and you know, it's like wow, you know, what was happening in Kiev and Kharkiv. I keep getting Kherson and Kharkiv mixed up because they had, you know, their armored vehicle, which is way better than the Russians one, right? So that got bombed because it's right, you know, right at the front line and everything. Of course, you know, excuse me, it's a primary target, but you know, you had to preserve that industry, and you're going to build these, you're going to have these factories where people are at in the cities, obviously, but you know, you got to build like these factory towns that are safe in the mountains, you know, now build these towns up from nothing and build them over there. Just have to do that. We did that during the Civil War, and I think DuPont, and well, DuPont actually, that's the inverse. DuPont was actually in building, he's a character or whatever, DuPont. Anyways, but there's other parts that were factory made towns that made weapons of war because we needed to do that, you know. Um, it's just how it was. But getting to the fact that why did I bring that up? Because they were bombed, they were artillery strike and all that, so they were destroyed. So if you cannot produce equipment, you really take the ability to be effective more out. And so that gets in the fact that, you know, if they attack Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, as they gradually whittle and destroy everything down, their ability to fight is diminished. So we have to preserve the industry. So um, we have to come up with a tactic, and, you know, to do so. And it's for simplistic reasons. You know, as they push in towards one of those countries, even though they're pushing in, all three of those countries need to counterattack to the most, even if they're not ready, even if, you know, they're caught off guard or whatever, and they don't have people in place, counterattack toward the most defensible region is, you know, 100 kilometers out, 60 miles out. Um, as far out as you could get it, they could supply lines where artillery won't get to it, so you have a buffer zone to preserve their economy. You have to do it even if they're pushing in another area. So you basically pound, not just pincer, but counterattack all along line or whatever, and you have to gain that territory and hold there until you build up enough, you know, equipment and material to truly counterattack. You really don't have the option just to hold where you're at. So of course you got to hold and make them have the first move or whatever, right? Honestly, you can't just react to what they have. They'll destroy the, you know, those the Baltic states. We have to push out. It's same thing with Poland. You can't wait till they get to Krakow, you know, and hold out. You got to counterattack probably out to somewhere around Minsk or whatever, or river between Minsk and Krakow, or whatever, you know, because as they, I mean, you could probably give a lot of quite a bit of ground to Poland because it's not really industrialized into the east part of it or whatever, you know, I'm talking about. But still, as you slowly, you know, destroy that country, a set of events is going to happen in that country. So you have to push out towards defensible. And that's just the new status of what we're at because you have to preserve that country. And it goes without saying, but having it, it can't absorb that like Ukraine did. It can't. It just won't be able to do that because you're knocking out whole countries or whatever. And the problem with that is, as you destroy that industry, that capacity of NATO to um, supply arms and everything else is now destroyed. The material, the men uh, are gone, and so on and so forth. And this is what I'm getting at. You have to preserve that industry. Some tactic has to be made because probably what's going to happen, Russia is going to go into Belarus and just basically more than just call it, just uh, enslave that country and just push it all into Ukraine. Anybody of fighting age, just take it for everything it's worth, all the resources because it's running out of resources. So the only option it is to take the resources of its neighbor. And Belarus is going to be the first probably to go. Take all of its industry, all of its weapons, everything it has, and just like basically clean it out, all for Russia, talking about, and get rid of the non-Russian population, the Belarusian culture, people, whatever. It's just going to be thrown at the Ukrainians. And then who's next? Um, Probably, for instance, the Kazakhstan. Go in there, take all of its weapons, all of its people. They're not Russian, um, throw it out. Its millions of population, preserve the Russian population, throw it at Ukraine. Take its all, take its all it's worth. So it's just an excuse. We think that it's just Russia. What do you think they're going to do? This is the progression of events that are going to take place because they're aggressively trying to secure their foothold into their own countries and build back Russia what it used to be. So how do you get rid of the population to make it more controllable? You annihilate it. You throw it at another country, and they gain that territory. And right away at NATO. I mean, the more territory they gain, the more China is going to be like, oh, we could do the same and have another like been a millennia and just have waves of 100,000 Chinese come over. And if they could convince the Chinese that this is plausible, if they could throw mass waves at, China could easily shut off 1% of its population, 15 million, like it's nothing. Can they? And the thing is, they don't need a 10 million man army. All they need is like a 300,000, 500,000 army, and they just push that 100,000 and annihilate that population into Ukraine, into NATO. And then all they have to do is supply another 100,000 every week, And how long can that go on? Um, like if say there was just a month or whatever, right? 100,000. So after 1 year, it's 1.2 million. And they could do that for like 10 years and it won't affect their population, And can NATO defend against 100,000 waves every month? What happens later on when they could do 100,000 every week? So and where are they going to get on the resources? It's going to be within those countries that they're going to depopulate. So there's huge regions of China that are not Han. They're going to go after all those other populations and make it more controllable because it's already overpopulated. And like I said, it's probably going to be a template what Russia is able to do to slowly um, secure its hold on its own people, and then they're going to expand Russia into where they can. So we have to preserve our industry as much as possible and cut off their industry. But repercussions of that and the natural um, events that are going to happen, they have to gain resources and people. And they can't kill off Russians. They're going to use Russians as officers and people who command other people and through waves. You already see waves of Russian Asians already, going into Ukraine, being this annihilated and slaughtered. And they're coming farther reaches than even China, into like Vladivostok and that type of area. And China has regions that are closer or half the distance. So, if you, I'm beginning to think this is more plausible than it isn't. You keep thinking like all this crazy shit that's going on and what historically has happened. When the region of Asia gets overpopulated, it moves on to Europe. And how to use that population to your advantage to further your country is to use it as an expendable resource. And knowing that you can't uh, feed and supply it at once, you have to use it, grind it up, and then have another people grind it up. You know, especially now without nuclear weapons, it's you use people. Just keep whittling down the Russians. It's just like until there's, I mean, whittling down the Ukrainians. Till there's none left. You know what I mean? So it's just a matter of how much weapons or whatever, I'm talking about. But that's why this is sort of like a wake up call. We got to gradually build up our industry and make sure that we're preserving who we are in our industry and counterattack to where it's defensible, where we could deal with and be able to give a little bit of ground to these masses of waves for the worst case scenario, like Parabellum. We have to hope for peace, build up our economies, do everything to prevent this war. But knowing what we had to prepare for the worst case scenario of these mass waves coming at us. So that's what I was getting at. Some sort of foundation of a theory of how we want to proceed with our economies together in unison to each other, so we could build. We could come out better. We can, because we were relying on to our, I wouldn't say enemy states, but people who were not in our best interest to give us our everyday things. We can't do that. We just can't. It's not safe. It's a national security concern. Um, so we got to make sure that we rethink everything and pull and use democracies. And we're better now. A lot of countries are democracies, and we got to rely on them instead of the cheapest route. In the long run, it's not the cheapest route because they could just withhold all that, whatever it is. And speaking of that, like you got Taiwan right there with its CPUs. They need to like basically offload those off to an American company, and then as we need it, we could buy it and be like, look, we'll hold on to it, and we'll have a set amount of price, so they will always have an income, because that shit could get destroyed in transit, and that way it serves both. They will have money almost like gold deposited in America, whatever, and we just pull it as a resource, and that type of thing. But I don't know. I was just that's what I'm concerned about. It's like that thing is going to be like flattened, you know. But getting over in the China aspect of it, they know that by the calculus that the safest thing, like how are they going to go across that street when they don't really have a decent navy and land? It's crazy. They're going to go across land. They're going to march, even if the population dies en route. to Europe, it serves them a purpose because now Han Chinese could now colonize the other parts of China. And China only has so much resources, it can only feed so many people. So it serves in the best interest. And now those people are now being killed off. They could colonize and they're gradually deteriorating NATO. The only thing that's going to stop them from gaining more territory, Taiwan and, and wherever else. The view is historically Chinese. But having said that, I think Korea and Japan could hold off China if they know what they're doing, because they're gradually going to apply pressure. And so, but they have to act quickly. They have to be very committed. As soon as the Chinese make a move onto Seoul and try to bomb in and destroy their industry, right? So they got to instantly counterattack, almost like Incheon, get right up to the Yalu River and just control that whole river, cut off any kind of like Chinese, intervention, or cut off the what's going to be, well, actually not intervention. I'm thinking in the past Korean War, cut off the Chinese invasion, and you basically cut it in half, hold the Yalu River, and destroy everything in North Korea. By doing that, you unify Korea, but there's a set of things you want to do. You want to make sure you capture the nuclear sites and everything else. But once they progress inward, you have to make sure that you're committed to full the counterattack and removing North Korea as a threat and from war. And once you do that, you build back up the as you fall back north north and South Korean border right there, DMZ, and then you build up your defenses along the Yalu River, and you try to push it out even further because you could hold the mountain range eventually above the Yalu River, because that used to be part of Korea, and there's a Korean population up there, anyways. I mean, but that's just it's not really all that relevant. But you could hold the mountains region as definitely a forward defense beyond the Yalu River. The Japanese and Koreans themselves, since it's such a small peninsula, if everything turns to crap, and we will have people up there, but they have to be committed to do that, you know, and they could hold it. But that's the only thing I want to say about China. If they really progress in that way, if they decide to join the war, is it to say that they don't? Is this like we could get caught off guard, but then it's just like how we proceed will provoke people, and so there's things we want to do. We gradually want to increase, our industry the right way. But we're in a situation where we could be in a win-win situation. We increase our economies. We could prevent people coming into war, other countries coming into war. And we'd be better off because what we did to Hitler to make him focus on certain industries eat up their capacity. But the more I look at what we say we did to Hitler, make him focus on these other things and these um, uber weapons, and all this other stuff, it's sort of like in hindsight, you know, because we always want to say we have a victory. And I'm not saying we gaslighted or whatever. We did, he did focus in an enormous amount of time on these like super huge weapons, but we don't want to do that either. So we got to be really concentrating on what we need with thorough debate. And in a fascist government, you really don't have that. So we have the advantage of doing so. But the Germans were very meticulous in what they did. So they thought about these things, what they need to do too. So they thought this is what we needed to work. So we don't want to fool ourselves. This is the correct set of actions. And even though it has this very logical, basic, whatever, so we got constantly adjusted and debated, and hence why we need a theory preserve our economy as as this is happening. And that's what I was concerned about, because we don't want to get complacent that we will just naturally do it. And we need this debate to actually take place of how we want to proceed, you know, and that's my concern. Because the true question is, what can we actually make? Is not what we actually need. I mean, it's not what they actually need up at the front. It's a very it's a problem we need to resolve now than later. Okay, that's all I got. So better minds than me need to formulate something. So hopefully, I set off a few started a conversation. That's my hope. All right, peace.